Hi Ava, this is Uncle Buddy from beautiful Prescott Valley, Arizona. Hope you're doing well. Hope that Alex and Mom and Dad are doing well also. Received an email from Nani a few weeks ago with a picture that she took of you holding up the letter that I sent you in a bottle. So I thought that was pretty neat that the note got to you. That was that was pretty amazing. And so I understand that you wrote me another letter in a bottle and put it in the creek. And an interesting thing happened once again. I I don't know if you know this, but I work at Prescott College, and we get students from all across the country. One of the students lives in Vermont, and she was driving cross country to attend college. And she stopped in New Paltz on the way to Prescott, and she found something interesting right by the Gilded Otter by the Wallkill River in New Paltz. And she picked it up, and what do you think it was? This bottle with some writing on it. And it says, "To Uncle Buddy, I love you." And in it, she opened it up and found this letter. This looks familiar. From you. You use scented markers because it smells fruity. And it says, "Dear Uncle Buddy, I love you. I hope you get this note. How are you doing? I miss you. How is the weather? Love, Ava." And so she just kept it, and with her as she was traveling cross country, and she started to attend college at Prescott College, take the classes, and she was telling the receptionist about this bottle that she found. And it was so interesting that she wanted to find out more about it, so she just kept it with her. And the receptionist is right, her desk is right down the hall from me, and I overheard her talking about this bottle. So I went and asked her about the bottle and where she found it. And I have a picture of her and her car, and she explained to me the trip that she took across country. So I'm going to show you a picture of who she is and the car she drove and how she got out here. Well, here's a picture of the student who found your bottle and note. Her name is Marcia Hinckley, and she's changing her name to Moonbeam Sky Dancer. That's an interesting name. And she's currently attending classes at Prescott College and studying the environment and ecology and things like that. And so she started out in her home of Vermont a few weeks ago and took a couple of days to travel cross country. I'd like to show you a picture of her car, which is also pretty interesting. And here's a picture of Moonbeam's car. It's a VW Beetle, and she's had it modified to run on seaweed juice. That is seaweed that's extracted from the ocean and squeezed to make a kind of an oil, and from that oil is used in the gas tank to fuel the car so that it burns cleaner. And so it's quite an interesting car, lots of colors and symbols on there, and looks like a lot of fun to drive. And so she drove that car from Vermont all the way to Prescott, Arizona. And I'd like to take a minute or two to describe the route that she took to get here. Okay, well, here's a picture of the map of the United States starting over in New York. And you can see at the Gilded Otter where this journey started when she found the bottle. And she drove down here to Middletown and over across into Pennsylvania, Scranton. And she said there was a lot of construction in Pennsylvania, and the road was very bumpy. It was very difficult on her car. She kept on going. And then she got to all across Pennsylvania into Ohio and stopped at Akron, Ohio, to visit the world's largest block of Velveeta cheese. She thought it was really neat, and she tried to take a little piece of it, but the security guard prevented her because it's not allowed. So she got back in her car and continued on across Ohio to Columbus, which was pretty busy place to drive through. And she stopped there for another day, and she was making some tie-dye t-shirts and stringing some beads, which are a lot of fun for people like that. And so she continued on a day later onto Route 70 and into Indiana. So Moonbeam continued her journey into Indiana and continued on until she got to Indianapolis, where the Indianapolis Speedway is. And she took a wrong turn and ended up on the Indianapolis Speedway track with her Beetle. And it was pretty funny from what she says, in that there was cars going 200 miles an hour, and here's her little Beetle doing 50 miles an hour. And she was safe. It was okay, even though the cars were zipping right by her. But she did manage to get off the track and back onto the highway. And so then she continued on to Terre Haute, that's the name, in Indiana, where she stopped by the Columbia House Museum. Columbia House used to sell vinyl records and 8-track tapes, and you can ask Mom and Dad about those, but she picked up some terrific 8-track tapes to play in her car, and so she had some new music to play on the rest of her journey. So she went from Terre Haute and continued down into St. Louis, and that's a city in Missouri, and it's very famous for baseball teams and for a couple of other things that I can't talk about. But she continued on and down into Missouri to Springfield, and then continued on. So she continued her journey, and let's see, went to Joplin, and then she stopped at Tulsa, where she found a flea market and traded some of her tie-dye t-shirts for wind chimes made out of all sorts of different metal, and it sounded I made a pretty sound and clanged and dinged, and so she took a couple of those wind chimes and continued on to Oklahoma City, where she then traded some of the wind chimes for some t-shirts again. So I don't know what that was about, but she liked the t-shirts that she saw in Oklahoma City, and so she got some more t-shirts and was driving along, and her car broke down right over in Amarillo, Texas, and so she had to go at the gas station and get it fixed, and was able to get it fixed. There was a couple of tires that were all worn out. They were had no tread on them at all. They were really smooth, so it was pretty dangerous. So it was a good thing that she had her tires changed, and then she continued on. So after having her car fixed, she continued on I-40, which is a pretty straight road, until she got to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they have the Bugs Bunny Museum. And so she took some pictures with Bugs and Daffy Duck and all of the Warner Brothers characters, and it was pretty fun, from what she says, to stop at Albuquerque and see Bugs Bunny. So she continued on and ended up in Gallup. So she continued on I-40 into Arizona and going up to Flagstaff, which is lots of evergreen trees, and went to see a display about that had the oldest Kit Kat bar that was ever made. This Kit Kat bar is in a glass case, and no one can touch it or eat it or anything like that. But she was looking at it, took a couple of pictures with it, and for her it was very special to have a picture of a Kit Kat bar. And so then she drove down all the way back into Prescott and reached Prescott College. And so that's the journey she took, and it took a couple of days because she stopped at all those interesting places and did some interesting things. And so the bottle ended up in Prescott. Quite a different journey than the first bottle that you sent that traveled into the ocean. And so pretty interesting. So that's the story. I hope that you found it interesting and entertaining. And Peanut, I hope that you are doing well and hope to hear from you soon and talk to you soon. So love you and love Alex and Mom and Dad, and give my love to everybody there. Uncle Buddy signing out.